Welcome back to Influential Dental. And I'm here with not only my fabulous co host, Michael Keeter. I'm Julianne O'Connor, but we have an extraordinary guest today on our show. And I'm so excited to introduce him. But before I do, I want to say hi. Thank you for being here at the fabulous SprintRay location.
Yes.
Okay, where we're recording live in a studio that is fabulous. Michael, how are you today?
Excellent, Julianne. Great to be here in Los Angeles and being at SprintRay.
Yeah, so I am so excited and jazzed to introduce this amazing guest, and you guys will see him if you're watching the video. But we have the fabulous Erich. I'm going to say it because everyone else is like Eric, and it's Erich Kreidler. And he is the president of SprintRay, and I really genuinely consider you one of my personal friends. And I just am so thankful that you're willing to be on the show today. So welcome.
It's a pleasure and it's an honor. Thank you for having me here.
Pleasure for us. So before we kick off, I want to talk a little bit, if it's okay. There's so much I want to talk to you about today, okay, especially your background. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit about how we met. When did you actually meet Erich?
Around the same time you did, a little bit after, I met Amir, and I've known quite a few people from SprintRay over the years and have a history with them, but a little more recently than you.
Okay, so can I be open about where we were standing? Okay, so Erich and I were standing in line at the bar at, I believe it was Thrive Live. Yeah, and we got to chatting, and do you remember what we were talking about?
We were talking about neurosciences and how to understand people's emotions.
Exactly. And I think at the time I knew who you were when you said who you were, because I knew what SprintRay was all about, but I wasn't really thinking about how people looked up to you so much. I was just myself in awe by our conversation. And it was so nice because you were just such a human being. And that's how we kind of kicked off our relationship, and then fast forward to here we are. But there's a lot that's transpired in between. So welcome. I'm just really grateful to have you here. And I want to deep dive into your background a little bit today, if you're open to sharing, because it's fascinating. So will you tell us just a little bit about you, and then we have a lot of questions for you today.
Well, I was born in Bolivia.
Bolivia.
It's a developing country right in the middle of South America, from a German family. And it was quite interesting because I got to see the challenges of really what is a very poor country, with all the chaos that exists behind it, with all the lack of opportunity for so many people. And this was contrasted with, I came from a fairly successful family. My dad was CEO of the electric utility. A couple of my uncles, for example, were in the president's cabinet and so forth. And the rest of them, they were not that far behind. And it was quite interesting to see the contrast between what people had access to and what people had access to, all the way from something as basic as food every day to just getting an education, and the value of thinking tactically, how do I eat tomorrow, or how do I eat today, versus how can I build values that I can later on use in life.
Just a quick question on that. So before we started, you were talking about you literally saw children who you knew weren't going to have a chance. I mean, it's really serious when you travel and or live in a country like this. I mean, how does that impact your thinking?
So sometimes I have philosophical conversations with friends. And when we talk about opportunities that people are lacking, for example, here in California, and I contrast that because here in California, for example, every child goes to school. If you're not going to school, the police is going to drag you to school. If you don't have food, they're going to feed you at school. So there are some basic things that, we have the luxury to have access to. And I'll give you a very concrete example. I was in La Paz waiting for an interview to get my very last visa to come to America.
Wow.
And I'm in front of the consulate. And there's this kid. He must have been 9 years old. He could barely look at me. He was looking and could barely make eye contact. And he asked if he could polish my shoes. I said, oh, great, polish my shoes. It was 9 a.m. That kid wasn't going to school. You knew that kid was going to get a severe beating at the end of the day if he didn't bring home the proverbial $1. And whatever he was doing, he needed to pay for the shoe polishing kids. He needed to buy his own whatever meal. Then he needed to go home and pay taxes to the family. That kid never stood a chance to succeed. So in terms of basic fundamentals that we take for granted, it's an order of magnitude different realities that we have in a very amazing, successful country like we have here, and what you get to experience somewhere else.
So, okay, so that's really interesting. So you had these experiences where you're seeing this, but you also came from an affluent family. I mean, so much so that you shared a funny story that you were someplace where you didn't clean up because you were, and somebody gave you a hard time. Tell us a little bit about that and
Yeah.
why it was that you didn't clean up. What was your background?
So we had two maids who lived with us in the household. So I'd wake up and I'd have breakfast in bed. I'd leave to go to school. Everything was probably left a big mess. But when I came home from school, the room was squeaky clean. Never had to, other than the times that I really wanted to cook on my own, I never had to cook. But even when I went out and cooked on my own, the maid would insist that she would cook because I would leave such a mess that she would rather cook and do that much cleaning as opposed to cleaning all the mess that I would leave behind. So when you live within a certain social status, you also somehow take things for granted. And those things are not a common thing anywhere. So it was fun and interesting to grow up in that environment. But I don't think that was something that I just wanted to take as an entitlement, which is one of the reasons why I ended up leaving home and coming to America.
I had a quick question regarding that. And again, thank you for sharing. This is amazing for our audience here to really get the behind story for the president of SprintRay, which I think everyone's really appreciative. The question I had is, it sounds like obviously you lived a great life and a great lifestyle. And then right before you decided to move to America, the question I have is, what instilled those values into you to have that empathy for that child that was shining your shoes and to be a deep thinker, to do what you're doing now? And what kind of made you who the person you are today?
I think you travel the world, you start experiencing things, and then you gotta go through a little bit of intro and extrospection. And let me build on that. And a lot of people talk about purpose. I'll give you the philosophical part, and then I'll give you a story. Because I believe that a lot of people live their whole lives without really understanding what their purpose in life is. I was in my mid-30s, and I had a lot of great things going for me. I understood technology better than most. I was, in a high-growth company. I had been employee number 27, and by that time, we had over 10,000 people in the company. So we were growing at leaps and bounds, global Fortune 500 clients and so forth. But then I started to think, what do I do? Because I can build new businesses, I can build new tech, I can become a great technology architect, I can be a great whatever. My biggest problem was that they didn't have enough hours to do all those cool things that I thought I could do. And I had the good fortune of sitting with the chairman of the company, wise, a human being. This guy had, for example, gone to India and built IBM from 0 to 100,000 people twice. The first one went over, built it. And then apparently India went through some process where they did not get along with the West, kick everybody out. And then a few years later, they brought everybody back.
Wow.
And then I asked Dan, so what made you have the desire to do it twice? And he smiled and he goes, it was within my purpose. And then I poked a little bit deeper. Dan, don't pull a Yoda on me. Give me more specifics because this whole thing of purpose doesn't really connect. I'm an engineer, so help me to connect the dots. And I'm never going to forget it because he gave me this fatherly smile. So, okay, son. He goes, when I graduated from Harvard, I went through a period, and he goes, it's going to take you about the same time, 6 to 12 months. But you have to start thinking, and you have to now seek what that purpose for you is. For me, for example, I realized that my purpose was to bring technology from the US to India. So when IBM asked me to build operations in India, it was right there aligned with my purpose. When I had to come back, I smiled because it was right there with my purpose. At UST, we were building all sorts of technologies and so forth. And at the time, we probably had 7,000 people that we had just hired over the last 5-10 years in India. What we're building at UST, it's right along my purpose. So every time that I have to make a big decision, either it's aligned with my purpose and it's a very easy decision, or it's not and I just skip it. And that became something that made him very successful. Know what his purpose is and just continue to do that.
I'm curious. Okay, so if somebody asks me my purpose, I have a pretty good indicator as well. But I'm curious for you, how did you know that was it? Was it because it was fun? Was it because, what was the indicator for you that was it? Like, I have to bring technology to India.
But that was for him.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. What is it for you?
For me, I went through my process. And I realized that my purpose was to bring industry to academia and academia to industry.
That's
By
right.
that time, for example, I had been lecturing at USC as an adjunct, as an industry professor. So I would teach 1 or 2 classes a semester, just as an industry guy, bring in whatever industry we could bring to the classroom, and then bring students back into industry. And I noticed that no matter what happened over the last decade, that was such a grounding place for me. And then it's interesting because things build on themselves. Next thing I know is I get approached by Caltech and the Caltech Associates, and they ask me to join their board. Then, you start working on these different things, and just interesting things happen. That's how I met Amir.
Right. I
Right.
remember you
Uh,
shared that with me before, and I remember you told me that it was bringing academia in. But how still did you know that? Like, how was it? Is there a particular indicator that showed you that this is it? Like, just
yeah,
were
took,
driven by it, you had
it
fun,
took
or you decided this is it somehow?
it took 6 to 12 months. You go through
Searching,
a thinking process, and
and then it
then you
becomes
realize,
clear. Have you done this,
this really
Mike?
works for me.
No, but I'm going to do it now. And I think people
Yeah.
should do that and reflect and then go through a 6 to 12-month process to really find out what your passion is and what your purpose is. And before we go on, I did, again, just want to thank SprintRay for hosting us and American Dental Institute
Yeah.
for supporting this podcast. Erich Kreidler, the president of SprintRay, thank you for being here. I know we still have plenty to go on our podcast, but I'm really appreciated and inspired by what I'm hearing, and I'm sure the audience is as well. So again, thank you. But I agree with you. It is about a purpose, and why we do this podcast and our company, Influential Dental, is about purpose, and it's more than a product. It's more than industry. It's truly working with like-minded people. And again, thank you for welcoming me into your house as well.
We're kind of going to jump around a little bit, but going back to your background and your family, you shared with me in the past a little bit about your mom and dad. Will you share? Is there more you can share with our audience, our listeners who maybe don't know what that relationship looked like? Did they have a tremendous amount of influence on how you looked at things, how you decided, to take advice from somebody who had brought, you know, whatever technology to India, and then you became the person to bring academia? What was that like for you?
So mom and dad, they have placed a lot of value on education. So, I got to go to the best, which happened to be the toughest school in the state. So it starts with a good foundation from that perspective. But also it goes to values. From my dad, he was a very successful executive who I could see how hard he worked. 7 a.m. he was gone. Many a times he'd have to, he'd be coming home late. I saw him dealing with so many different issues, some small, some large. And it really helped me to understand how even keeled you need to be as you become a leader of a company or of any organization. From mom, I learned the impact of just good values. For example, in a country like Bolivia, you would expect it to be relatively corrupt. She had her own business, import-export, and for many, many years, she drove it very successfully. As a matter of fact, that's what put me through college. And one of her driving things was you never cut corners. So when we would import things from America, her products would be stuck in customs for 2 months, 3 months, because the people
Because she
looking at the
wouldn't bribe
paper
anybody.
were expecting a bribe.
Yeah.
And by the way, the bribe would cost you $50, and doing things the right way would be $500, and it would take another 90 days worth of waiting. But she never cut those corners, not just for that, but with anything else. And it's interesting because in the long term, anybody who learns how to cut corners, they cut corners everywhere else. And eventually, that sinks your business.
Isn't that interesting? Because you hear so many people talk about, I want to figure out the path of least resistance, the least that I have to do for, whatever, for the greatest result, et cetera. And you're saying the opposite, which I'm a firm believer in. You have to pay your dues. I believe you have to do things right. But it's interesting because you've got people out there sharing these philosophies. People think they'll get rich quick, right? Or whatever the case might be. And here you are with this incredibly successful business. You are even keeled, by the way. You're the most even keeled person I know. Nothing like this guy. But it's just fascinating to me to hear this. And you've built it this way.
Yeah, but there's also a dilemma, right? It's a dilemma from the perspective is if you can find the path of least resistance that works, do it. but don't do it at the expense of compromising integrity, for example.
Love
Right.
that clarity.
No, that is very clear. And integrity and doing the right thing when no one's looking is the definition of that. And I think you can be successful doing that, which we've seen over and over. And that's nice to hear. And it's so refreshing as we live in a world that doesn't always take the high road, right? Doesn't always do the right thing. So it's great to hear from a leader of a very successful organization mention that for our listeners.
For sure. So let's go back to your background. At some point you decided, I mean, you were born into this very affluent family and you get this great education. You can pick up the phone and call anybody at any point and somebody will take you to the top of any food chain and in terms of business, and you can have anything you want. And you decide to come to America. Why? What made you want to come to America?
And it's interesting because, yes, it was not just anybody within business that was a phone call away, but anybody, period.
Wow.
I needed to be in front of the president. I could be in front of the president, but there was something missing. Because also, as part of that education, I picked up a few languages, and I was pretty fluent in at least 3 languages at the time. And once you become fluent in 3 languages, a 4th one is not a big deal. A 5th one is even easier. So you just pick it up.
Our audience needs to know, sorry to interrupt you, what languages do you currently speak and are you looking to get any more?
Well, I speak English. I speak Spanish. I speak German. Back then, German was even better than my English. I had gone to a German school. I had lived in Switzerland. Spending time in Europe, the next, Portuguese and Italian and so forth, you can just pick them up quickly. Then you can get into other languages. Your brain just gets good at it.
Will you say something in another language for us?
Va soll ich sagen.
En qu'est-ce que c'est en anglais, s'il vous plaît? Je ne comprends pas. So what did you say?
I said, what should I say in German?
Ah, nice. Okay, beautiful.
So now what it means is that you can pretty much pick anywhere in the world. And you know that it's just a matter of weeks, maybe months to just get up and running and be very comfortable living in that place. Believe it or not, I found the U.S. to be the most balanced country. On one hand, fellow Latinos, we like to party. We're very informal.
We've seen a little bit of this, by the way, Eric.
That's nice. Balance, right? Just like you said, balance. Work hard, maybe play hard, enjoy yourself, enjoy life.
I had just lived in Switzerland. And Switzerland, Germany, they have a lot of incredible things. But it's also, it doesn't have, for example, that warmth of the Latinos.
Right.
I just put in. Now here in America, exactly what you said. You can work very hard. You can play very hard. You can be somewhere in the middle. You have all these opportunities to do it your way. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do things my way.
So you literally, though, came over here with like a suitcase, right? Is that not true? Didn't you kind of leave everything behind?
I had my suitcase and I had my guitar.
Oh, so you play guitar too? Wait, hold on. You didn't tell me this. Where's the guitar? We want to hear a little bit of that.
That'll be
too.
part 2 of our episode when Erich plays guitar.
Yeah, so I play guitar for many years in a band, actually. It's just sometimes life gets too busy and you don't put as much time and attention in things that you wish you'd be doing. But eventually you get back to it.
So are you in a band now secretly that we don't know about? Because we're coming out. I'm buying tickets.
I have a small band.
You do? See, I ask all the right questions, don't I?
All right, look for Erich in a...
Erich Kreidler is on stage where?
And it's a small band with my dear friend, Jeff Ackerman.
Oh, really?
Who picked up a guitar about 6 years ago in earnest. And I've seen Jeff become such an amazing musician, and he's been gifting his talents to the world in just very inspiring ways. To give you more background, Jeff is on the spectrum. When he was very young, doctors told his parents that he would be institutionalized. Thanks to the amazing work of course, of Jeff and his parents and the community that they organized, Jeff ended up going to an institution called Concordia University. He graduated from college, and then he started looking into his inner gifts. And, you realize that, some of these gifts, when you give them the ability to come out, they just come out with a vengeance. And he makes such incredible music. So what we do is every time that we have an opportunity, we sit down and jam and we build,
so great.
That's a cool story. I'm so inspired.
And now we have Jeff, who is the center of the circle, bringing everybody together and just
What a touching story.
sharing lives.
I'm so inspired. I'm a firm believer that everybody has gifts to give, and everybody has, if they're surrounded by the right people that can really bring that out or really see that, or if they see it in themselves. Do you have any idea on what his sort of secret was in terms of making that transition into really picking up guitar and channeling it there? Was it from, going to college and he realized it, or I'm curious.
That's probably a question for Jeff.
Personal story, right? Yeah,
But
it's
from what
really
I could
awesome.
what I could see from the outside, once you put all the right pieces of foundation in place, it's interesting what can come out. For
How much
Jeff,
of that is the people, do you think, that you surround yourself with, out of curiosity? Because we're going to talk about this a little bit more
Right.
later, I know.
And what I was going to say, Erich, is maybe you had a lot to do with that as well, as
Yeah.
someone that opened yourself to him to say, hey, come on in, let's play together, and so on. So maybe you inspired him to be part of that.
I hope that, at least in a very small way, I could have participated in that. The reality, though, is that his two parents get really all the credit. I mean, these are two human beings that had an interesting, super messed up challenge in their hands
Right.
of a child that needs a lot of help. And what they did is they built a community. Now that community has probably 100,000 people and families that are supported, and they created a foundation called TACA, Autism Community in Action. And in the process of helping other people, a lot of resources started coming toward a center of gravity. And that became quite an interesting way to understand what is possible.
Yeah. Well, anything's possible. And I'd love to talk to you more about, some of maybe the charities and things you do. And I think this is great for our audience to listen and say, one, if you have your team or others around you, to uplift them, and you never know, and to kind of be that person in someone's life that can be part of someone's leveling up to take their lives to the next level. And you never know where that'll be. So thank you for sharing that. And I would like to lead into, you brought up that gentleman. Are there any other charities or other things outside of what you do now that you like to give back in or participate? Because obviously you're a very deep thinker and obviously want to give back as well.
So there are two things that I've placed my time and energy on from that perspective. One has been the autism world. My son was diagnosed with autism when he was 22 months old. So it became our purpose as well to figure out how to crack that code. Brutally hard. Just running SprintRay is something easy when you really think about what a child with autism has to go through, and the whole family goes along with them for the ride. And the second thing that I spend time on has been in education. And I've sat on the board of the Caltech Associates for many years, and that has been something that has given me additional inspiration.
Well, thank you for sharing, and I appreciate that, and I know our audience does as well. So, you can aspire and do great things in industry, but you also should give back as you do for your family and others. So thank you for that.
Yeah. So, I want to go back a little bit. So, we've talked, I know offline a lot about core values, right? And you have brought up a few. You've said some things about hard work and different things. And very obviously, I had no idea about your child. So for what it's worth, I know that there's got to be a whole subset of values that are based around just even that as a parent. But for our listeners, because I think some of your values are really important, can you just kind of give us, like, what are some of the top values that you really are mindful of? Something that even maybe you try to instill in others or share with others or offer it to them because it really has served you well. With all of everything that you're talking about, you're such an inspiration because, again, we see people in such successful places, but we don't know what they've been going through behind the scenes. And you have such an incredible story. But what are some of those values that that you really focus on?
So there are three things that I've learned to cultivate. One is relationship or a transaction. You want to build great things, work on relationships. Don't think as to, what is the next tactical thing I can gain from somebody. For example, when we met, it was a very sincere, let's build that relationship. I really had no idea where things could take us, and it didn't matter.
Exactly how I felt.
If there is something that we can learn from each other and we can do together, great. The second piece is placing value on the journey, not the tactical dollar. And I want to also, for Wall Street, all my investors, I'm as greedy as everybody else. The guy selling bananas on the street is a greedy person, and I'm as greedy as that. But what happens is that profit is an outcome. It's not the driver for things. So you have to worry about, what is it that I'm really embarking myself into and what is it that I'm embarking myself into for. At SprintRay, what really inspires us is to be able to, one, change an industry, but change an industry with things that deliver smiles, deliver the gift of health, deliver something that will make somebody a better human being. At a point in time in our lives, you've learned the process of making money because it's a process. Once you know how to do it, you just do it.
Wait, can you tell us how to
So-
do it? Can we get a tip on that, please? Can we throw that in the value set? I'm just
No,
playing.
but so here, I'll give you an
Yeah.
example. So we have an incredible technology for 3D printing, and we aimed that at 3D printing teeth. I could make an argument that we could have aimed that at making bullets, and we could take our technology and sell it to the Ukrainians, and then sell it to the Russians at the same time, and then go sell it to to whomever is fighting in Gaza, and sell it to the next one who's to the Indians and the Pakistanis. But that doesn't inspire us. That is not something that, at least for us, it's making us successful. I am sure that for other people with different purposes, with a different objective in their lives, that may be something that's for them. But for us, taking that purpose that is aligned with what brings us back every day, it's about the journey. So relationship over transaction, journey over the tactical dollar. And the third piece, we talked about it early on, it's about integrity over convenience. And underneath all that, I don't think you can really have any shortcuts with hard work. It's just no shortcut for that. You want to be a great athlete, you better be out there practicing, training, and leaving it all in. Short of that, you're just signing up for mediocrity. And that's not the culture that we want to have at SprintRay. That's not the culture that I've grown up with, and that's not the culture that I want to leave for my children either.
I love that. So Mike and I have done a lot of work together on, what makes somebody take action, right? And we talk about being in the moment, and the only time you can do anything and be effective is right here, right now, in the moment. But you have to make those decisions and then have the integrity to yourself to follow through. What gives you the follow through, the drive to do what has to be done when it is hard work? Is there something, do you have a secret to how you show up and make it happen? Or is it just this commitment that, I have to get up and be at work at this time because you saw your parents doing it? Like, what gives you that? Because we all think it conceptually, we're saying to ourselves, if I just did that, I'd be, whatever. But not everybody does it. What's the difference with you or others that do it?
Do you know how many days, for example, Amir and I, we've worked at SprintRay? Michael, what do you think?
How many days?
Yeah, we've worked at SprintRay.
Well, many days before you formed the company, but I don't know.
I'll give you a number how many days together we worked at SprintRay. 0.
Okay.
We
This
haven't
is
worked a
not
single
work.
day in our lives here. I would wake up and I would come and I would continue to do what we do, regardless of a tactical paycheck, regardless of any of these things, because what we do is super exciting, super fun, and we have an incredible team that really inspires us. And I think that's really the crux of how do you keep coming back and how do you keep putting energy into it? And it's because the system puts energy back into you. All you
feel
do is
that
you
way
put
about
energy in
working
the
with
system.
me?
Well, it's a little work right now. Maybe we'll aspire to get to Amir and Erich's side where they don't work. But no, I love that sentiment, and I love what you're saying, that it's not work to you. It's purpose, it's mission, it's being. If it's not work, what is it then?
It's life.
Life. It's life. Life, not work. That's good. It's life, not work.
Well, and it's reflected. It's really interesting. So we got here early
Yeah.
and we've met with some of your team, and we know many of the people who work here, and everybody that we talk to has something incredible to say about the culture here. And you just don't see that at every company. In fact, you don't see it at a lot of companies or it's very few. What's the secret to creating a culture of people as a leader of this company and being so even keeled? How do you do that? How do you instill that in other people? Do you hire? I noticed this is one of the things we were talking about, is that you've hired people from many industries, and it's not just people who were in dentistry before. So what's the story there?
Maybe there are 3 things to consider. It's number 1, you have to go through a proper self-selection process before you even hire somebody. For example, open-ended question that I would ask a candidate. What is your perspective on work-life balance? If that person tells me I really care about my life, I have a super life and I want to have a balanced life, I would tell that person, this is not it. Right now we're growing I don't know, 40x the industry average. We are uh, changing an industry. We are creating new technologies, and we're in super land grab mode. It's not the place where you expect a work-life balance. Maybe in 20 years when everything is stable, everything is just, just more of the same, then you can have a different group of people. Same thing when it comes as another example, open-ended question. What's your perspective on work from home versus work from the office? I believe in working from home, then it's a self-selection process because we want to have people here in the office working side by side with us, moving things together as the Spartans, just pushing it forward. So I think if you start selecting the people that are in the same wave as you are, there's nothing wrong with somebody working from home. Just that's what they need to do and that's what they want to do. And there are plenty of companies that can offer that.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with asking for work-life balance. Many people, that's what they need and that's what they want. And we would encourage that. Just in another company. Again, this is not a judgment thing. It's just having the fortitude to say, this is for me, this is not for me.
It's funny because I just had a great conversation with my husband about this very topic. And he said, anybody who doesn't understand that we're passionate about what we're building, and that's why we're working crazy hours some days. He said, when you have that drive and you have that energy, he's like, there's nobody should be stopping that. Why wouldn't you want to lean in when you're feeling that level of energy because you're so excited about what you're building, right? And so I love what you're sharing. And I do believe that, it's just looking for alignment because there are plenty of people, right? And it's just finding the right people. So you're hiring for the people first and foremost, and then teaching them. Is that, or do they need to come technically skilled? Because we met somebody who was from,
beverage industry.
We met somebody who was originally from, what was the other industry that we heard today? There were a couple of different industries, and they're all in, and they're obviously extremely good at what they do here. But you clearly didn't hire them because they were in dental to begin with.
Yeah, there's a bit of an art as to how you mix different industries and different backgrounds and then you make it work. Different areas, for example, marketing. If we want to have a lot of pizzazz in dentistry with marketing, you'd have a hard time finding that as a skill within marketing. So within dentistry. You
Correct.
go to Hollywood.
Yeah.
Then you have all the pizzazz and you can pick and choose pizzazz from that industry.
Right. And what it shows in your marketing, what you've done at SprintRay is, right, it's not and again, not to offend the industry, but traditionally dentistry has been conservative, somewhat stale in their marketing. SprintRay's come out and, with your marketing, disruptive, the colors, the pizzazz.
Also, there are a lot of things that are very important within dentistry. You cannot undermine the value of understanding the industry.
Yeah, technical
we have
skills.
Technical workflows, understanding what happens in a dental clinic, having the empathy for the doctor, for the patient, and so forth. So there are also many, many, many things that are super consequential that you need to understand in dentistry. So you have to bring the right industry expertise, because otherwise you become flashy, but with no depth.
Right.
So you have to combine understanding what the customer needs, understanding what the industry needs, and being able to tell a story in a way that engages.
Well, and if you have both, then you're on the trajectory like SprintRay, right? So you need to have both. And definitely, as we talk to dentists when we train, is fundamental dentistry and the clinical aspects need to be at this level. It's the rest of it that you can work on, the marketing, the soft skills, how to deal with people, that will take you to the next level. And I think that's what
one of the things that I learned while spending time with the Caltech folks is that true innovation happens at the intersection of two or more disciplines. So what are we doing here? I mean, we have hardware with our 3D printers. We have to invent Midas as a different way to evolve. We're dealing with software, both in terms of communicating with the hardware so that they can do all these things that they do in order to 3D print things, but also AI and designs and so forth. We have to work on materials because, the hardware, software, materials. Now you have three disciplines, and there's one more, which is dentistry. There are clinical workflows. There are things that you have to understand that need to follow a particular process because it's the best thing for the patient. So when we look for talent, it's got to be talent that is comfortable knowing at least, 2 or more disciplines and can navigate through that.
So these disciplinaries come together and merge, and you have to bring all this together. But you guys here at SprintRay especially have grown at an extremely rapid pace. And I remember when I first came in here, I think, and you gave me a tour, and I remember you talking about some of the reasons why you guys were growing so fast. And I specifically remember you talking about how you innovate at such a fast pace. Can you share anything on that? Like, what keeps you ahead of the curve here? With sharing trade secrets, like why is it that you guys stay so far ahead and people are scrambling? How are you doing that?
We're never satisfied. Every time we have a new product, it's because we're trying to solve problems that we see out there. And then when we have a new product, a new system, what happens is that you uncover new opportunities. So we're always anxious because we see more opportunity and we want to bring solutions to it. Invention is a matter of all sorts of success. And we foster that and we value it and we just stay out of their way.
Are you inspired by competitors?
Every day, 100%. Because the moment that you think that, I got this, nobody can compete with me, is the moment that you go from an innovator to an aristocrat. And at least while we run in the company, we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that the company continues to stay as an innovator.
I love that.
I guarantee you, today, somebody in their garage, they were thinking and they were trying to find ways to take their hook and bring SprintRay down or climb up. It is what it is. And it's quite an amazing position for us to be in. But those are the people that everybody takes shot at, but everybody's taking shots at SprintRay.
Yeah.
So now it's on us to have the fortitude to win, not because we're the biggest, but because we're bringing the most value to our customers.
Yeah, I love that. So we're coming to the end of our show here, but I love everything that you're sharing. It's been just a phenomenal experience to spend time with you. It always is, because you're an incredible person. And I think it's going to be really insightful for people who maybe have never seen a glimpse behind the scenes of who you are. But let's kind of wrap up. I know you have a couple probably last questions. And then at some point we may want to ask you to come back on, and we'd love to have Amir on the show as well. This is just, I think, really insightful. I'll turn it to you for a second, Michael, and maybe...
Yeah, to play off kind of your last question about innovation and SprintRay continuing to innovate and want to stay on top to help serve the dental industry. And most recently, I read, and we talked also a little bit before we went on air, is about an incredible award, and I'm very happy for SprintRay and you personally for the Entrepreneur of the Year for Los Angeles. And what also is incredible is it was not just an industry award, it was an award among all industries. So can you tell me a little bit, in the audience, a little bit about the Entrepreneur of the Year award for yourself personally and for SprintRay, and what's that mean for you?
Well, it was quite an honor. The selection process was super tough, where they look at the company, they look at the company's financials. They have judges from multiple industries coming into the company, interviewing folks, and to be able to be selected within so many companies that get nominated. It's super exciting. But here's the two things that are much more exciting than having an Entrepreneur of the Year award. One is that I think they got it wrong, because it really should be Company of the Year. That selection process that I told you about,
right,
they're really looking at the strength of the fundamentals of the business, the strength of the company, and the strength of all their people. So that Entrepreneur of the Year really goes to SprintRay, not to Erich, not to Amir, not to Jing or Liang. It goes to, or Hussein. It goes to everybody within SprintRay. And the second thing that we realized, and you mentioned that a minute ago, is this is an Entrepreneur of the Year representing dentistry.
Right.
We showed other industries that innovation, that pizzazz, that new cool things can happen here. And a lot of the things that we do within dentistry don't happen just because SprintRay is cool. It happens because we have such amazing partners. We have amazing distribution partners. We have amazing partners that do materials with us. We have amazing partners that have integrated with us and brought things into the hands of doctors. Our community of doctors, they're just incredible people. Everybody working side by side is quite an amazing thing to do across industries. And we're super excited. We're super proud to be able to represent our industry.
You're such a profound example of elevating other people right here.
Yes.
He's got the Entrepreneur of the Year award in LA, and you just all you do is lift everybody else up. And I think that's just extraordinary to see that
Yeah.
example and hear you say that, because it literally truly who you are.
Yeah.
And you're so consistent in being that way.
And I agree with you. It does take everyone, including your strategic partners, which I call them, and also the team within SprintRay. But also it's a great challenge, I think, to the dental industry that, yes, be the best that you can be in the dental industry, but it doesn't have to stay within the dental industry. Be the best you can be competing against all industries. And I think that will really take dentistry to the next level. I mean, we're all blessed to be in this industry, and I love it for what we do for patients, what we do for others, and the teams that are built. But I like that you said that it's not just a dental ward, it's a crosses industries. And I think that's very important for the dental community to remind themselves of that you can compete in a bigger stage.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, so kind of, I'm going to give a shout out to our magazine right now because
Yes.
we're having a lot of fun with this. So Michael and I launched a new magazine called Influence. You guys are going to be in it. And in the fall issue, we're going to actually feature somebody on your team with an article as well. But, and it's all about lifting people up. And you can't do any of this without everybody involved. And you really couldn't. We wouldn't have this if it weren't for these incredible humans that support us. And so, it's just, again, it's evidence of what you guys are doing. You guys collaborate with everybody. It's incredible to see you collaborate with so many different companies. And I don't hear anyone speak ill of this company. And that's phenomenal because you just don't see that with a bunch of other companies where people are out there bad-mouthing of them or whatever. Everybody's trying to figure out how to work with you guys. Even if they're competitors, they're trying to figure out how could we collaborate. And so it's amazing what you guys have accomplished here.
And for us, it's very sincere. We are very, very appreciative with every one of the partnerships that we have. When we get a call from a doctor, we are in pain if they are in pain. If there are ways that even, like you mentioned, with competitors, where we can actually do something so that our mutual customers can benefit. Short term, it may not make sense, but long term, it's the right thing to do. And it ends up lifting the whole industry.
Yeah, I love that. And then also talking about going across industries, I think we have a lot that we can learn from other industries too. And our magazine, what I'm excited about is it is going to be one of the first lifestyle magazines, and it actually supports a lot of what you guys are doing because it's a little disruptive. And in dentistry, you see that, people are not bringing in other companies outside of the industry, and we're representing a little bit of a different, kind of an altered view on what that can look like, because in dentistry, it is about lifestyle. Everybody is human in this industry, and it has, traditionally been so technical in nature. And so when we were talking with your marketing team, it was really fun because they see it, and it's clear that SprintRay is one of those companies that's looking at lifestyle. Even when you guys are creating things and innovating, it's looking at how can you give somebody back their quality of life, even in the industry and even technically speaking, but it's still tied back to this sort of disruptive nature of what is life really about at the end of the day, when we're working so
Well,
hard.
and it makes sense, obviously, spending the afternoon with you talking today about, having working hard, enjoying your life, playing guitar, going out dancing, having fun. I mean, you can do it all if you choose to do it all and don't necessarily have to stay in a bubble. So obviously SprintRay's at the trajectory it is because you and your executive team and what you're doing.
And your guitar playing, I'm sure.
On the guitar playing as well. But, thank you for, sharing with our audience on our podcast today. And I really appreciate you having us at SprintRay headquarters as well in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I feel
It's
lucky
been
we
a
got to
pleasure.
record. By the way, your studio is beautiful. It's magnificent. You guys really put a lot of heart into this. It's fun to record here. I want to do more here. We have to talk about how to collaborate on that. But let's wrap it up with whatever you'd like to share with the listeners today. Whether that be, we definitely want to know where people can follow you on Instagram or social media. And I know that probably everybody knows where that is, but I'll let you share on where that is. And then just any last words that you might be able to share with people who are out there really trying to create and innovate. And they're, they don't, maybe they're they're discouraged because people tell them they can't do it. They should have a backup plan. Like that's the most common thing I think I hear people who are trying to innovate. They think that they're crazy. What would you tell somebody that's going through that? And then where can people follow you?
I would tell them two things. One is work your butt off, and two, come to America. Because it is incredible the ecosystem that we have here in order to make things thrive. Where else on planet Earth do you have access to talent? Where else on planet Earth do you have access to capital? Where else on planet Earth do you get access to an environment where if you fail, you're encouraged?
Right.
Fail fast, and get up on your feet and do it again. Where else can you find a community that gets super excited when you succeed? What we have here is not the norm virtually everywhere else. So if you want to innovate, if you want to grow exponentially, if you want to scale, come to America and come ready to leave it all in, because it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of effort, and it's going to take a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and you're going to enjoy the heck out of it.
And if you're already here, there's really no excuse other than working hard. So no, and thank you on that. And obviously SprintRay.com and on Instagram. You can find Erich on LinkedIn and reach out to them. Like I said, we know a lot of people at SprintRay, a great company. They do work hard. They do like to have fun. And obviously SprintRay innovates. So again, thanks for sharing your story. I've been very moved by what you shared and your journey, and obviously how you lead the organization.
And of course, you can follow us at Influential Dental. And we have to give a shout out to our lovely partners, American Dental Institute, who we collaborate with on this. They also have an event coming up, so you can check that out on their website. And it's just been such an absolute pleasure. Thank you for the honor of allowing us to come in here and be in your space and do this and with all of your equipment, which is much more advanced than us. And just to really share openly and authentically with, who you are and what you're doing in the industry. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, well, pleasure is all ours. This is your home. Welcome to SprintRay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erich. Thank you, Julianne.